While we all inevitably do it at some point, dump stats can be very, very dangerous. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire, here with just a quick player's guide episode for you today. Today talking about why using dump stats can be very, very, very dangerous for you and your characters. But before we get into all of that, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, and go on down there, hit the like button, and share the video far and wide. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way as quickly as possible, let's go ahead and move on to what we're talking about here today. Dump stats. It's something we all do at some point. I said as much in the opening of the video, but why do we do it? Well, it's because, maybe it fits the character idea that we have a lower intelligence character, or maybe just somebody that has a habit of putting their foot in their mouths, and or just has no charisma, no magnetism, and in fact is personally just repulsive on some level, or is just fundamentally a weak or clumsy character, or maybe a bit more on the sickly side, depending on which stat you decide to take points out of. But you take those points out of them so that you can apply those points elsewhere and have a higher stat. Now, for spellcasters, the main reason to do this is to boost your main spellcasting stat. Make sure that's up there as high as you can get it, so that way you're much more effective as a character. And well on you. That's a pretty good route, good strategy to go for. And since most spellcasters are relying on intelligence, wisdom, or their charisma, they've got 3 physical stats that they can kind of play around with and draw off of without really tanking themselves too much. Though, again, by lowering the statistics of those other stats in favor of whatever your main spellcasting stat is, you do run the risk at really putting yourself into a vulnerable position elsewhere. You need Constitution for not only fortitude saves, but also for hit points. And then you need your dexterity score because, as I've said several times, dexterity is just a prime stat that affects your ranged attacks, your initiative, your reflex saves, your armor class, both reflex and, or not reflex, not flat-footed, touch armor class, and your regular armor class. It affects several skills, and putting that in, just burying it in the ground by taking points out of it can really do a lot to hamper you. Strength, you can kind of get away with a little bit more, but because that affects your ability to attack in melee and deal damage, your carry weight, your push-pull maximums, all of those things, which can be important depending on the character in question. And conversely, if you're playing a character of a much more martial persuasion, then tanking your mental stats can also present some dangers as well. Tanking your intelligence means you get less skill points all the way around, and some classes really need those, especially those bonus skill points. And then wisdom score, where wisdom affects your will saving throw as well as a number of different skills. And then charisma, charisma is all of your social skills, and for some classes, a core part of their features. Bards also depend on it for their spell casting as well as several features. Same for paladins. Numerous classes depend on different stats in different ways, and depending on the build and the character you're going for, those can vary somewhat. Should mention, joining us now is one of my most adorable co-hosts, Finnegan, apprentice storyteller and uninitiated as yet into any circles of lore. Haha! Success! He has joined the party. But tanking those can really affect you in ways that might not be so immediately obvious, especially if you're a new player, particularly for new players. But there's also another added layer of danger there. It was something alluded to a bit, and regular commenters and viewers had picked up on it. Captain Crank, several more of you, I'm sure. But when you have a dumpster stat and you take it down low, even to 7, that can be dangerous for any creatures or spellcasters that have the ability to drain targeted stats. I mean, different kinds of creatures early on, shadows, can drain strength from a character. So a character that already has a low strength score is at risk of being taken down to incredibly dangerously low levels. Most characters, once you hit like 0, you're just dead. Your intelligence score goes down to 0, you're brain dead. You lose all of your constitution, you just die. You have your strength drained, you no longer are able to breathe and suffocate under the weight of your own body's mass. Your lungs unable to perform the necessary functions. I know, such crazy things people do, huh? So that can be very, very dangerous. And now, I don't think that DMs should go full bore on exploiting those weaknesses at every single turn. That just gets old. That teaches players to not make diverse and interesting characters with weaknesses if the DM's just going to be picking at them the whole time. But you should be ready for the DM to attack those weaknesses at some point, especially if your opponents are any kind of intelligent and with the ability to learn, or if you're in a situation or a place where that's a distinct possibility, where you could be running into creatures like that. For example, if you're wandering around on the plane of shadows. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, really. But man, what a diverse range of threats that really is. I mean, the different kinds of creatures that can drain those stats, that's a whole array of lethality that's available right there. So it's something to be aware of. Certainly make the characters that you envision that are going to be the most fun, that fit what you're going for, but also be careful, especially if you're playing around with min-maxing a little too much and do a little bit too much minimizing in order to maximize in areas where maybe having a more diversified character would be better for you. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below and we'll engage in discussion. And remember, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. This has been one of my most adorable co-hosts, Finnegan, apprentice storyteller and uninitiated as yet into any lore. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.